Welcome back to r/justnohoa, where people share stories about their crazy homeowner associations that make us feel better about not living in an HOA. And in case you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled My Fight with a Poorly Ran HOA. This happened a few years ago when I used to own a condo. I initially bought a condo from my older brother, who gave me a good deal since he got another job and had to move to another city halfway across the state. The HOA would not let him rent out the condo, so he sold it to me. After moving in and learning about how bad HOAs can be the hard way, I noticed that there is a problem with the foundation. There were some spots where there was a large noticeable gap between the wall and ceiling. All of the buildings had 4 condos each. I reported the issue to the HOA and they never initially replied back about it. They decided to ignore the issue instead. Over time I had noticed that the cracks were getting bigger and occasionally I heard popping noises at night coming from the attic. I have tried reporting the issue again and the HOA simply ignored it again. I decided I would like to sell the place and get out of there. Because of the foundation issue, nobody would want to buy it at the time. I had also eventually met one of my neighbors who was also reporting similar foundation issues. Eventually, after enough complaints, the HOA board decided to finally start fixing the foundation issues. That is when I found out that at least 8 other buildings had similar foundation problems. They then issued my first special assessment at about $3,500. Everyone in the affected buildings had to pay the special assessment. They then started working on a couple buildings and fixed the foundation issues there. Then they stopped working on repairing any other buildings. It looks like the buildings that the board members lived in got fixed before they stopped. Something did not seem right at all. After sending messages to the HOA board to ask why they stopped and when they will continue work, they ignored everything again. It looks like the HOA board decided to play games with fixing the buildings and tried to ignore the issue as much as possible while collecting special assessment payments. Also during this time, they kept also raising the monthly HOA fees as well. Around this time, I met some of my neighbors who also had foundation issues as well. One of them was a retired reporter who specialized in finding corruption in large corporations and government offices. She started to help us out with the legal issues and to fight the HOA in court if it got to that point. Eventually, the HOA decided that they will issue another special assessment for around $3,000 to help cover the costs of the foundation repair. During this time, the HOA ignored all questions about when the foundations will be fixed while collecting more money from special assessments. My neighbor got the rest of the neighbors in that building together for us to help fight the HOA. She wrote up letters demanding answers about when things would be fixed and we would all sign them to show the HOA that we are not playing games anymore. This went on for a while. Eventually the property manager tried to actually claim that my building had no foundation issues. I decided to call a couple foundation repair companies and got some quotes for foundation repair. Apparently the foundation sunk about 3 inches according to them. I then sent a copy of those estimates to the property manager. One of them was for over $10,000 just to fix my corner of the building. I was also threatening to have the foundation company fix it myself using the funds from the sale of the condo. The property manager was then forced to admit that there was a foundation problem in my building. Also during this time my neighbor did talk to an HOA lawyer that specialized in going after abusive HOAs. She also called various local city offices as well. The city government actually stepped in and also threatened to sue the HOA. Around this time the fire department came and inspected the building. What they found was very disturbing. The support beams for the roof were breaking. I was also sent pictures of the support beams. They were bending and starting to break. Code enforcement came by and also issued the HOA a fine. The HOA kept trying to play games and still refused to fix the building this whole time. That didn't work when the city manager's office threatened to sue the HOA on our behalf if they didn't fix the problem very quickly. The HOA finally got a foundation repair company to come check the foundation and fix it. They held a meeting for us with the foundation company to go over the repair process. That is when I found out that one of the units had the foundation sink as much as 6 inches. Also, after that meeting, we ended up getting a third special assessment for $2,500. After finally fixing the foundation issue, the HOA was also forced to replace the roof as well. All of these repairs got very expensive for the HOA. Around the time they replaced the roof, I sold my condo and got out of there. During this entire time, I had to fight the HOA. I had found out that they previously fired the last 2 property management companies, and also the HOA board had been ignoring foundation issues for at least 10 years. Eventually, the problems got so bad that it required the city to threaten to sue the HOA in order to get them to fix the problem. Also during this time, the HOA actually tried to issue a $12,000 special assessment to everyone there. They tried to sneak it into a board meeting and hoped that nobody found out about it until it was passed. What actually happened is that someone found out about that special assessment and put flyers on everyone's door telling them about it. The next meeting, a riot almost happened and the $12,000 special assessment failed very badly. Most of the homeowners attended that meeting and let the HOA board know in a not so nice way that they did not like that at all. And yeah guys, I gotta say, that has to be one of the greediest HOAs we have ever heard of, because at least to me, it seems like the HOA tried to scam the homeowners, or rather, made them pay as much money as possible at every single step of the way up until the very end. Although I gotta say here, it was definitely positive that the city got involved and essentially threatened to sue the HOA. I think so far we haven't had many instances where the city was actually helpful and sort of assisted the homeowners when it comes to getting justice in a fight between the homeowners and the HOA. The next one is another HOA story and it is titled, "That Time My Dad Beat the HOA." About 10 years ago, my dad bought a condo in Orlando to rent out to theme park goers, and he used the HOA's recommended rental management company, RMC. After a year, he reviewed his costs/profits and found that he more or less broke even, which surprised him because the condo was only vacant on 2 separate weeks that year. He tried to get in touch with the RMC to see if they could go over his unit's costs, but the owner seemed to dodge my dad's calls. Dad looked to see if the HOA recommended any other management companies and found that the HOA bylaws restricted them from using any others except RMC. That raised a red flag for Dad, so he went and dug up info on RMC and found the HOA board chair, HBC, was a co-owner of the company. Dad emailed HBC pointing out the conflict of interest and insisting the board needed to allow homeowners to use an alternate company. The guy replied back with something like, "Sorry, not sorry. If you're unhappy with the HOA leadership, you can attend the meeting on this date when we will hold a vote for the other 3 board positions." Dad was mad, and while digging through emails to build evidence for small claims court, he stumbled upon an email that had been sent to all the homeowners. However, HBC had forgotten to BCC the mailing list, so all the homeowners' emails were visible. Dad sent a mass email and found lots of similar frustrations, and he walked into the election meeting with an unsurmountable voting block. They replaced all 3 members who had all been enabling HBC, but they had to deal with HBC still because the board chair was not up for re-election yet. HBC was pissed but still trying to play innocent. Dad then recommended to the 3 new board members that they vote to hire a forensic accountant to go over the HOA's books. HBC said, "Why should we waste HOA fees on that?" And Dad replied with, "So we can put your ass in jail." Update: I had not thought about that in a while and I ended there because I never actually heard any updates about subsequent meetings. I asked just now and he said they voted HBC out but never got anywhere with legal repercussions. As one of the commenters put it below, HBC cowered away and the drama fizzled. The end result was good though, because Dad has been making good money off the rental in the years since, and he was a hero to that community. They wanted to make him the new chair, but he declined since he lives out of state. And guys, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to leave me some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, HOAs are starting to seep into Europe, but worse. So for starters, Europe, but especially my home country of the Netherlands, has a big housing problem, economic refugees, war refugees, greying and generally just overpopulation are the main culprit. What makes it worse is big corporations and house milkers buying quite literally everything and raising the prices to the maximum of what people can afford. Buying a house is a nightmare because what used to be a 300k 2-story chalet in the suburbs is now being sold as a 1.7 million euro mansion. If you are looking at starter houses that used to be just under an eighth of a million, they have all been bought by these big corporations and house milkers, so they can either sell them off for double the amount they bought it for, rent it out, which makes more money in the long run, or make student accommodation / dormitories out of them and rent out every room separately. Especially the student dormitories are in state of disrepair and they dare to ask premium for it. Why is this relevant? Because these same people are starting to act like HOAs and using the current state of the house market as leverage to be able to get away with it. My brother mentioned the other day, for example, that even though he legally owns the house he lives in, he cannot even wash his car on his own driveway according to the rules. If he does it inside his garage though, which is only like 2 meters further, it is perfectly fine, but who washes their car inside of a garage? They even try to shoo low-income households away by raising the living space around these people, shopping centers, parks, schools, other properties getting a massive makeover. Which then causes house prices and rent to rise, which in turn makes these people unable to pay their rent and are forced to move out. Until today, all they ever got was a warning from the state regarding anti-competitive and monopolistic behavior. If they do get a penalty, it usually is a relatively small fine that they just pay up and continue doing what they are doing. They also prey on students and especially international students since they have little choice in terms of where and how large they can live. International students are not familiar with how high standard rent prices are, so they are easily tricked into paying 750 euros per month for a studio that is supposed to cost only 450 euros. And I gotta say guys, obviously huge parts of American culture over the years have made their way into Europe, whether it is food like McDonald's, burgers, etc. or movies and music. That's all no issue obviously, but I gotta say that HOAs can stay in America, they don't need to come to Europe. Then again, we already have in some countries sort of an equivalent, but they are definitely not as strict as real HOAs. And the next one is a little bonus story from user thefoxtrot86 on r/ripe stories, and the story is titled, Valley Girl Lady wanted to call the cops on us for waiting in my truck. My roommate and I had to head to Vancouver to buy a front passenger side fender panel off of a truck to replace the badly dented one on mine. We assumed the traffic would be really bad, so we left a bit earlier. The plan was to meet the guy at 6 PM after he got off work. But we arrived about 40 minutes earlier than expected, so I sent him a message on OfferUp that we would sit and wait. So we parked in a nice open spot across the street in front of a house with a fence. No big deal, there were other people here and they didn't seem to mind us at all. We were waiting about 30 minutes just sitting and watching YouTube videos. And during that time a woman parked her car in front of another house a ways ahead of us, but we paid no attention to her. I was just sitting and watching Cyanide and Happiness on my phone when suddenly I noticed a woman creeping up to my truck. I say creeping because she would walk a few feet and just stare and then walk a few more feet doing the same thing. I tapped my roommate on the arm to signal to him she was there. The lady finally walked right up to our passenger window and asked why we were there. and she spoke with a somewhat condescending valley girl-like accent and used the word like a lot. She looked about 35 plus from what I could tell. The following is more or less paraphrased but should be pretty close to how the conversation actually was. Valley girl, like, what are you doing here? Me? Oh, we are just waiting on somebody. Okay, because like, I was getting ready to call the cops on you because I thought you were like stalking me or something because you were like sitting here for so long. Roommate and I just give each other a look like we are saying, is this lady serious? So I laughed and said, oh, believe me, I get it. Gotta make sure and look out for yourself. Then I pointed across the street and said, you see that red truck over there? We are waiting for the guy that owns it to get home because I want to buy parts off of it. He is selling the truck in pieces on OfferUp. VG gave an awkward pause and said, okay, because like, I don't know you and this is like a really close-knit neighborhood. Plus your truck like has Oregon plates on it, so I just wanted to make sure you weren't like scooping me out or anything. We have a neighborhood watch here. Me? Nope. We are just here to buy a fender panel of that truck and that's pretty much it. VG? Like, okay. She didn't say anything more after that and just walked away and soon drove off in her car. Then the guy we were meeting got home and we told him about the valley girl. And when he heard her description, he said he wasn't even sure she actually lived in this neighborhood because he had never seen her. We were all confused but just got to work getting the fender off the truck and forgot about it. And the next one is titled, You Know What? Call the Cops. I live in a completely unsoundproofed flat with my wife and kid. We sadly discovered it after moving in because the neighbors were not there when we visited. Crap happens. And by the way guys, that would be my biggest nightmare. Anyway, as every occupant was aware of it and we all had small kids, we agreed upon having 3 rules. Noise kept to a minimum between 1 PM and 4 PM on weekends. Same goes starting from 8 PM to 7 AM all days. Warn at least the day prior if you plan a party. Does not mean total silence at all, just not using power tools or blasting music or talking way above normal volume. It went quite okay for 2.5 years, but then the above us neighbors moved. They got replaced by a father in his mid-40s and his son about 25 years old. After welcoming them, we warned about the sound issue and the rules to help everyone have a quiet time. They said okay and thanks for the warning. A few days go by and the dad brings over his girlfriend, he is divorced, and they banged all night. Was making me laugh, but around 1 AM that lady started singing, so I went upstairs for a very awkward conversation. I just told the out-of-breath sir that again the building had no soundproofing and that singing at 1 AM was a bit too much after that long evening and we would really like to sleep now. He went red as possible and we exchanged few words, just saying nobody's mad but that the sound issue is very real. After that it was okay, but as he realized how much that issue was real, he started going to his girlfriend's place on weekends and his son started bringing friends over more frequently. We learned he has not 1 but 3 sons, so 2 of them are not supposed to live with him regularly. Anyway, as they invited friends over, it was always in party mode, no respect at all for the rules. I went upstairs approximately 10 times in a few months because we were fed up about being obliged to sleep with earplugs and having our kidnaps ruined. I finally decided to talk about this to their father. He was not happy about his sons and told me he will talk to them but also was a bit discouraged and tried to tell me, if necessary, call the cops. I was not willing to do so because I am more about peaceful solutions and told him that it won't help keep cool relations in the building. First lockdown came to my country, all neighbors decided to flee elsewhere, we had the building for ourselves. That was a great help for our nerves and sleep, we rediscovered what it was to live without noise. And now, the end of lockdown, few incidents but enough to make my wife and I so mad at those kids that we were not talking anymore but screaming at them. Then one of them told me, "You know what, call the cops." I didn't do it that time as they shut their noise afterwards. Second lockdown started about 2 weeks ago, no neighbors moved that time except for their dad. As soon as he left we heard more noises than average above us but not enough to trigger us at first. The second day we realized they were at least 5 young adults in that flat and they started partying. Not loud music, but music anyway, talking loud to each other from both ends of the flat, clanging chairs, slamming doors until 1 or 2 AM each night. We hoped they will leave soon or at least calm down, but not at all, and no sign of the dead. 10 days in, our cup was more than full. We went upstairs to again tell them to stop making so much noise and that it was the last warning. The day after that, the same story. I was furious. I screamed at them to shut their music right now, it was 11 PM, and that their friends had to leave by tomorrow or I will make sure to call the cops.
Oh, just call the cops. Nobody's moving. We live together as co-renters.
Oh really? I called the cops. Lockdown is in effect. You can be with family, sure, but not with friends like that, and knowing the building's landlord, I was sure their situation was not official at all. The cops came, told them the brothers could stay, but the friends had to go back to their place. They gave no fine for this time, but they had to make sure I would not have to call them again. They told me to not go see the neighbors if it happens again, but directly call them back. The next morning we also decided to call the landlord to explain the situation. No father in sight for 10+ days, at least 3 unknown persons living there with 2 family members. A lot of noise every day and nights, refusing to make any effort and claiming to be co-renters. The landlord was not happy, told me I was right to call the cops and to warn him about the rent situation. He told me he will call their father right away. Same day late afternoon, I started to hear some movements above, people running left and right. Just before dark I was pleased to see those 5 young adults with their luggage exiting the building and going toward the train station. The cherry on the cake, I saw one of them giving the finger behind him in the building's direction. I laughed so hard. Calm night with a smile on our faces. And guys, I'm wondering, have you ever had to deal with noisy, inconsiderate neighbors? And if so, how did you get rid of them, if you did at all? I gotta say guys, now doing this YouTube stuff for around 2 years, if I would live in a building that had super thin walls and I could hear the neighbors all the time, I would probably go crazy. And sadly, Ripe Stars, we have already reached the end of the video. However, as usual, if you cannot get enough of my videos, I would suggest you to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will show up very soon on the left side of the screen. In addition, please don't forget to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more exclusive Reddit content. Mainly, at least at the moment, just no mother-in-law videos. In addition guys, I would just like to say we are super close to 50,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. It would be a dream come true to finally reach 50k. Thank you so much in advance and I hope to see you again tomorrow.